Sekeres and Price for Thursday, February 27th, 2025, coming to you from the Nation Network studio, built by Arbor Lee here at the Historic Wall Center. In this program, a presentation of Bet365. We'll open an account with Bet365 today, bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION when opening that account. Matt Sekeres alongside Blake Price. Four-time Juno Award winner Mike Rogerson hitting switches, conducting things. Big show coming up as the Vancouver Canucks defeat the LA Kings for their first victory of this 5-game road trip, and on the opening end of this Southern California back-to-back. More on that in a moment. We'll start with our Surrey Mitsubishi poll question, inspired by poll question genie Blake Price. Do you care how the Canucks win? Pretty simple. Does style matter to you? Yes, no, vote. Sekeres and Price X and YouTube channels. I think I know his answer.
Two facets to this, too. There's the entertainment style, and there's also the structure style. So there's two ways to analyze this in the how. Are you entertained? Do you think that it is a winning style of hockey, a sustainable brand of hockey?
Wayne, in our mentions here at Canucks House, I'm a big believer of, yes, I do care how they win. It's what separates a cup contender from a pretender. Well said, Wayne.
I think analysts would tell you, and I mean numerical analysts, statistical analysts would tell you that it does matter because there's unsustainable runs the teams go on. We saw the Canucks to start the season last year. First 2 months, different kind of unsustainable. Riding the PDO and the shooting percentage there, it was certainly more fun than this current brand is. So it ticked the box of, yeah, I care how they win. This is super fun. But it wasn't sustainable. And we saw the cliff eventually come halfway. So I think, without a doubt, the how matters.
I voted yes because big picture, not only what you mentioned about if we're going to invest our time, let's be entertained, let's make sure we're watching, something worth watching. Also because of, the end goal here is to win a Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
And Stanley Cup teams look a certain way. Every year we go into the Stanley Cup playoffs in April, and there are some teams that they just ain't it. They're in the playoffs. They're one of the best 16 teams in the NHL, but they're not one of the best 2 or 3. And look, one of the things I love about the NHL is that you get big upsets in the first round. 8 seeds beat 1 seeds all the time. 7, 8 seeds even go on runs in the Stanley Cup playoffs. They almost never result in that team lifting a trophy. And there's myriad examples through NHL history. I mean, the Oilers and Flames teams that went back-to-back a couple decades ago, right, had incredible runs, underdog runs, the 94 Canucks. And I know many would quibble and say, no, that was a better team than a 7 seed. Yeah, okay, fair enough. But they almost never win. Montreal Canadiens a few years ago in the bubble, right, from out of nowhere. Now, that LA Kings team that won, the first one that won, I realized they were an 8 seed. That was a much different animal from Christmas on. They finished 8th because of a very poor start to the season under, what's his name? Terry
Murray?
Yes, Terry Murray. But were much different after Daryl Sutter took over. Now, what I will say, after a decade of despair, I was A-okay with ugly duckling wins from the Canucks last year in the second half. In the context of this playoff race right now, to make sure you get in, and certainly given the composition of the team, I am A-okay with Canucks ugly duckling wins. In fact, I don't think they have many other routes to victory. This team isn't going up and down and outscoring many foes in the NHL. So you're going to have to play a certain way. We have talked about this since the JT Miller trade, which neutered some of the Canucks offense, really exchanged some goal scoring for goal prevention in the form of Marcus Paterson.
It's just depressing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's depressing that the Canucks have to play the way that they're playing. Unlike before,
well, especially since they had 2 first-line centers at one point, right? And a 40-goal scorer and a dynamic offensive defenseman.
I'm actually more critical of how Rick Tocchet coached this team when he had both Miller and Paterson than I am now.
Oh,
now he has to coach this way.
Of course. He's got no choice.
Fun
I mean, you horses for courses.
Yeah.
You got to coach what you have. If this was a building team, an expansion team, something where you were looking at a ground-up enterprise, then maybe you would try and coach it a certain way with an eye to, okay, in the future we're going to have better players here and this is how we want them to play. But that's not the scenario before the Vancouver Canucks or Rick Tocchet. And look, I have been very skeptical, dubious of the just get in and see what happens logic. Again, almost never ends in a Stanley Cup championship. If it's just about having fun and experiencing the Stanley Cup playoffs and taking your fans on a ride, don't get me wrong, I see value in that. But for the most part, I'm a believer in, build a team that can compete over 82 near the top of the league, and that tells you you've got something that a club that could lift the trophy, like we saw in 2011 with the Canucks. Now, that said, earlier in the season, I was looking at the Canucks as they started to waffle a little bit and find that playoff bar, in and around that playoff bar, and went, 2 top centermen. At the time, we still considered them both top centermen. The best defenseman in the world, and potentially 2 series-stealing goaltenders with a stout defensive system.
Yep.
I would have given that Canucks team a much better chance of going on that run and fulfilling that anything can happen narrative more than I give this Canucks team. Because now you're down to, well, do you even have one top center? Hughes is banged up. Demko's out. Lankinen kind of into uncharted territory here, right, as a carry-the-mail starter and guy who's going to be the man in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So I'd be quite surprised. Nevertheless, Winnipeg has a awful postseason history, right? And as good as some of the other teams are in the West, Blake, we've been saying it all year. Washington and Winnipeg have terrific point totals, but I'm not sure I fear any team in the NHL this year like I would have feared the Colorado Avalanche a couple of years ago when they won the Cup, or Vegas when they won the Cup. Well, Vegas is a darn good team. Winnipeg is having an unbelievable season. Watched part of their game last night in Ottawa. 11 straight wins. They were all over the Senators early. They scored 2 goals. They were beating people up. I mean, it was a demolition in the nation's capital early. But Hellebuck has his postseason foibles. We saw him lose another big game last week, right?
Well, and Nathan McKinnon's Colorado Avalanche. I mean, if they don't win last night, the Canucks pull within 3 points of them with 2 games in hand.
Yep.
Like, you're right. There's honestly, but
Dallas is good. Edmonton again leaking at the goaltender and goal prevention side of things.
But I just don't see a path. Not with the lack of scoring on this Vancouver Canucks.
No,
Matt,
I don't either.
Matt, if
to the Stanley Cup final, I can see a path into the second round or even the conference final if things break right. But no,
if the Canucks didn't have Quinn Hughes, I would be right here before you telling the Vancouver Canucks to trade Elias Pettersson and start again. The only reason, the only reason we haven't heard that from anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Incredibly, because they've got to keep the best defenseman in the world on their team.
Mm-hmm.
And so now they've got to find the narrowest of paths to success here, if not this year, then next, in order to ensure that Quinn Hughes stays put. But I'm telling you, it is one player away from me saying, nope, start over, which is pretty unbelievable to think.
Well, and there's this from J-Pat. The Canucks have been held to 3 goals or fewer in 9 straight games and 18 of their last 19. The only outlier there is the 5-2 win over St. Louis on January 27th, a month ago today.
Yeah.
They're 5-3-1 in their last 9. 9-8-2 over the 19-game run, despite an injury to Quinn Hughes, of course, and a whole bunch of news face. Yeah. 9-8-2 over 19, scoring more than 3 goals only once, Blake.
So, I mean, if it was a little bit better, you'd say, hey, maybe it is sustainable. But, I mean, that's not a very good record. It's probably maybe better than you'd think it would be. That's the point of the tweet, I think. But it's still, that's not a pace to get to anywhere. So, like, that is a miss the playoffs pace, despite the fact you might think that, again, it would be worse than it is.
Our friends at Surrey Mitsubishi want to get EP40 back on top. Everybody at the dealership and beyond rallying around the hometown hero. Every time he scores a point, you save $500 the next day on any new or used vehicle. If he gets 2 points, that's right, $1,000 off. If he gets 5 points, $2,500 off. You got to mention Sekeres and Price, and the offer is valid until the next game day. Time to cheer EP40 back to the top. Score more, save more, more value, more savings. Bring them any offer. Surrey Mitsubishi will beat it. Visit them, 13820 104th Avenue, of course, in Surrey. Our lineup, our top story today, brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery. 3-2 overtime win at Los Angeles to move back above the playoff bar, if only momentarily. Canucks have the back-to-back, of course, tonight with the Anaheim Ducks, while Calgary is in Tampa Bay in the midst of this gauntlet Eastern road trip before the Flames. The Canucks blow a 2-0 lead in the third period. They survive 2 late goals, 1 in overtime. 2 late penalties, 2 late goals and 2 late penalties, 1 in overtime. Garland scores his second of the night, the game winner. He's up to 16 goals. He moves into second place in team scoring, 36 points, 1 better than Paterson, DeBrusk, Boeser, and yes, JT Miller is apparently under the weather. And he snaps a 6-game pointless streak. And look, when you're Connor Garland's size, you have to have guile. You've got to take lessons and apply things out there on the ice that bigger guys don't necessarily have to. And I loved what he said about his overtime winner last night. Let's take a listen to the diminutive hero, Connor Garland.
Actually thought I was going to go to Hedel coming around the net, and I just told Murph that I tried that in Detroit, kind of a similar play, and they took it and went down our end and scored. So there's a little bit of a spot there. I felt I could hit it and got fortunate, and it was big one. We needed it.
How much you grade yourself on points, but obviously you hadn't had a point in 6 games. Did it feel a relief to get a couple of goals tonight?
I don't know. I don't know. I didn't know that. But that's all right. No, we had a break. We had a break in between. No, it wasn't bad news. We won 3 before break, so if it didn't really matter. Lost 2. Could have had one in Utah. So those ones sting when you don't score there. But it's just nice to contribute to wins at this time of the year. It's all that matters.
And that's the type of stuff that has endeared Connor Garland to coaches and has gotten him ahead in his hockey playing life, right? Okay, tried that play. It didn't work. In fact, you turn it over there, it's coming back the other way, so let's put it on net as opposed to trying the feathery pass.
And to get him going, as we talked about off the top here about the lack of offense, to get him going mitigates if they can get one scoring 1 goal doesn't mean he's going. If he can get going a little bit, and right now he's tied for second in Canucks scoring, I believe, on the season. He's
second on his own.
On his own now?
Yeah. The game winner put him
over
those
top.
other guys. Yeah.
So, if they can get him going, that helps. But last night they also got points from unlikely sources. The Nils Höglander goal, spectacular. We can get into that more. Dakota Joshua played an integral role on a couple of plays, gets 1 point for his efforts. And heck, Derek Forbort got an assist on the Nils Höglander goal as well.
The Forbort and Marcus Pettersson were going to get into it here. Penalty kill has been sensational. Canucks 5-10 now in overtime shootouts, all wins on the road. It's odd. Hedl, the 2 assists. Höglander, his first goal in 8, playing with Elias and DeBrusk.
And what do both of those guys do? We talked about this going into the game, Matt. Mm-hmm. Carrying the puck,
right,
looking dangerous. Both Hedl and Höglander did exactly what we talked about.
Mm-hmm. Quinn Hughes wasn't expected to. So, no, let's back up. Quinn Hughes, we figured, he's going to return. Then wasn't expected to play. Then apparently talked himself into the lineup. They were supposed to go easy on him, 16, 17 minutes. He winds up playing 21-38 and assisting on the game-winning goal. Here's Tocchet, and I'm not sure I've ever heard this from a coach before. Here's Tocchet telling us the story of how Hughes got into the lineup. Take a listen.
It was like, I don't know, it was like 11 minutes, and Huggy called me in the medical room, and we had a little bit of a talk, and he kind of persuaded me. It was one of those things that, I don't know what he played tonight, but the original thought was 16 to 17 minutes. I think, I don't know, do you guys know how much he played? So that was the original load management, but he said he felt pretty good out there, and, I think he's pretty good right now, so that's the one thing that he wanted to play, and we felt that he was safe enough. Talked to the doctors that he was fine.
You have to cross stuff out on the lineup card or anything? Like, was it that close?
Well, it was about the 8-minute mark, and we had to tell Bainesy he was not playing. So yeah, but that's probably the longest I've ever gone about making a lineup stream. So I don't know what the wire is. I think it's 7 minutes, or you got to get your lineup in. So I think we had about 90 seconds left. So yeah.
Never heard that before.
Well, and here's the thing.
Truly game time decision.
Yeah.
Like we're about to drop. No. Can you tell us who you're playing?
Here's the thing, though, Blake. If you make a mistake on that lineup card, it can result in a player's disqualification.
Mm-hmm.
I saw it happen once with Pat Quinn and the Leafs in a playoff game, no less. Apparently, trusted assistant Rick Lee, just a data entry error. He had Michael Renberg's number on Robert Reichel, and that was enough for the officials to go up to Quinn at the bench and say, Reichel can't play. You've listed him in the wrong number.
I have some vague recollection of it.
Something happened recently.
Hamonic? Was there a Hamonic incident?
Yeah.
Something, I don't know. People can dig for us.
So, typically that lineup card is filled out and you get a set of eyes or two on it just to make sure all the names and numbers align. Just to make sure you haven't put 21 players down.
By the way, he didn't answer his question. We're going to play him 16 or 17 minutes. How much did he end up playing?
21-38.
Almost 22, yeah. Missed it.
Here's Quinn missed 6 games. Here's what he said about how difficult it has been to sit and watch.
Training, that's a slow process. Was day by day. I'm really thankful to our medical group who did a great job with me, and I'm just gonna have to keep building. Can't say I felt my best tonight, but I got through the game, and hopefully I can build confidence from there.
Yeah, and I do wonder how hard the lobby was, because the way Tocchet has to look at it is like, okay, Quinn, this is the most important game, but then, son, you got to turn around and play 24 hours later.
Yeah.
So I can understand if they were looking at it going, okay, play him in the second of the back-to-back, then he's got a day to recover, play Seattle. So we'll see how effective he is tonight. Didn't feel his best. Bit of an ominous comment, hoping to get confidence. Bit of you don't typically have those genre of conversations around Quinn Hughes.
No, I think he means confidence and trusting that he's going to feel okay. When you're coming off an injury, you're scared that you're going to re-injure, and I think there's confidence that he can be. He was not his usual self. He was fine last night, but he was not overly aggressive with his cutbacks across the ice laterally and trying to lose guys. There was a few. He did do it, but I don't think it happened with the same level of regularity. And a stagnant game like that is the kind of game that when Quinn Hughes is 100%, he'll try to use that to open up lanes and that sort of thing. And he could only do so much. Looked like he was operating at 70 or 80% sort of thing. So I think the Canucks have got to hope that he can get through the next little section of the schedule feeling okay.
Yeah.
They don't have a ton of rest coming up, obviously. We've talked about this. But, they've got the 3-day break after the Seattle game. And I think that's going to be really nice for Quinn Hughes. If they can give him 2 full days off of the ice there, off the ice, but maybe in rehab and that sort of thing, that 3 days is the last chance to catch your breath if you're the Vancouver Canucks, almost till the end of the season.
Right. As we talked about with Jeff on Monday, 25 games in 50 days to end this to end the campaign. So no, not much rest for the Wicked here as they head into March, what will be a very busy March. In fact, Blake, I only see one other double day break in early April.
Well, the Seattle game's good in that they'll be in their beds at a very reasonable hour. Like they could be in their beds at 12 or 12:30 on Saturday night. So then you get 3 really decent nights sleep, 4 really when you can't going into the game. So there's a chance for some R&R and at least a slowdown for the Canucks before they hit the grind.
Last year, Rick Tocchet with the Midas touch just seemingly did not make a bench mistake, a strategic tactical mistake, a lineup mistake. I mean, everything fell the right way for Rick Tocchet last year in a Jack Adams winning campaign. I said it countless times last year. Single-handedly, one of the best coaching jobs I have seen in any sport in the 25 years I've been in this business. Well, kind of like the PDO, it's all coming back on Rick this year. I don't know about you, but I am screaming at my television on that coach's challenge late on the Fogle goal.
Yeah.
In what world?
And they've been very good at this.
In what world? And they have.
Yeah.
In what world are you putting 2 points in jeopardy with a regulation loss to challenge that for goaltender interference? I realize you might have thought that the stick was above the crossbar and that the goal shouldn't count, but that's not what we're reviewing.
I mean,
that's not
maybe
what you
Shorty
can
was
challenge.
Right. Shorty was suggesting maybe he was just trying to underline to them when they had this, but it really
Blake, that's fine, but that's not.
It's also not their purview. That goes back
that's
to
not
the war
their
room. Like the stick above the bar is not
so
up to them
little
anymore.
chance of them going, oh yeah, that's a stick above the bar. No. I mean, because even the stick above the bar, it looked high, but there's not conclusive evidence there, and it's certainly not goaltender interference. And to do that against a team you're chasing in the playoff race, dear God,
I wish
that is that is the worst challenge they have had in his tenure.
I wish they would at least do what soccer does on something like that. A guy screams, "Oh, handball in the box." Referee holds play for 2 seconds, hand to ear, and you get word. League's having a quick look at that just to ensure that wasn't a. Like I wish the NHL could say, especially on a light night, 3 games in the NHL last night, they're having a quick peek just to make sure. That way, Rick Tocchet would know if there was any sort of game plan there about the stick above the crossbar.
That's bad process for all involved. It's bad process on the league. It's bad process on the Canucks bench.
Like I think Rick Tocchet might keep that flag in his back pocket if he knows they're looking at the high stick part. And even if they arrive at it's still a goal, at least somebody has had the second look.
I agree with you on what soccer does. It's bad process on the league. The league should review that. Kind of like, the NHL or the NFL review scoring plays. But it's also bad process on the Canucks bench.
Yeah.
Tocchet was asked about it post-game. Here's what he said.
His blocker, but he wasn't in the crease from the angle. So, So my mistake. I don't think he had his foot in the crease. If he had his foot in the crease, I think it would have been no goal. But because he was out of the crease, we thought he hit his blocker. So yeah.
It was pretty gentle contact, though. I disagree with him.
No, I know. Like, brushing the blocker, coach, is not going to get you that call. I realize there have been some really strange goaltender interference calls over the years, but I did not have any kind of confidence that was going to go there.
And even timing-wise, the puck seems to be past him by the time he's even struggling to get past him. So
and timing-wise, in context of the game,
that too.
Score.
Yeah, it could have been a 2-goal swing.
I mean, we are sitting here blistering. Talk it and this decision if LA scores on that power play.
Yeah.
But they don't. And they don't because Marcus Paterson has been absolutely sublime. Shorthanded since the Vancouver Canucks acquired him. Mike's got the graphic here. Look at this. So this is out of 83 defensemen with minimum 10 penalty-killing minutes, according to Natural Stat Trick. Hasn't allowed a goal against. First in expected goals against, over 60. 11th in high-danger chances. When Marcus Paterson is on the ice, killing penalties, the Vancouver Canucks are even stouter defensively than they have been. And this continues do you remember when we were talking about the Canucks as one of the historically worst penalty-killing teams in the league?
Yeah.
2 years in a row there. They were dreadful. Since Christmas, Canucks are 4th in the league on the penalty kill. 83.1%, 11 goals in 24 games.
I remember when
Forbert was exceptional with the hit on Kopitar in overtime, killing the penalty, 4-on-3.
When the Canucks signed Forbert, heard the name, but didn't really know the game much, reached out to some reporters in Boston. What's going on with Forbert? Games played is low. Was he being scratched? And they said no. He got injured. And when he wasn't there, the PK was terrible. He was a rock on the PK. And really, because of his own injuries this season with the Canucks, we didn't see him in a groove fully integrated into that penalty kill for him to back that assertion up. Well, now we are. He's had a nice run of games here. He's maintained some health. He's a pretty good penalty killer. He's pretty limited in everything else defensively. And certainly transitioning the puck, even though he got the assist last night. But he might be worth his weight in penalty kill alone.
Can I ask you, because of your testimonial here on Forbert and something that I have long postulated on this show?
We're doing a wingspan thing?
No.
Oh. Ass? We're measuring ass width again?
Can I give you two things? No, we're not doing wingspan or derriere. We're doing 11 and 7. Another one of my pet projects.
Well, Matthew, on a center light team, it's not a bad idea.
We're not going to score anyways.
We don't have the guys anyways.
Except we don't have forwards worth playing. So am I going to dress Derek Forbert over Arshdeep Bains and Nils Oman? Blake.
Yeah.
I have long wondered, if you're going to have a fourth line winger who does not play special teams.
Yeah.
And I guess Oman penalty kills, but Arshdeep, God bless him, doesn't, or at least doesn't in a big way. Neither, of course, are power play guys, although those pickings are slim. Forbert is a pure penalty killer. Well, you got cover if you lose the defenseman in game. How many times have we seen it? You lose the defenseman in game, suddenly you're scrambling, you're leaning on 5 guys to play the heavy minutes.
Myers gets hit in the throat.
Are mixed and matched. Yeah. Absolutely.
3 guys over 30 now in Susie, Myers, and Forbert. So
late in the season,
it's not a bad idea.
Thank you, Blake Price.
We've complimented each other's ideas a bit too much lately.
It's been a very chummy week. A very chummy week.
Don't like it.
We're going to have to find something we disagree on.
We'll have a knock him down tomorrow.
Maybe the Canucks trade Boeser and he loves the deal and I hate it. I don't know.
Fridays have been a little testy.
Well,
late.
Fridays usually we grow weary of each other. It's been a long week. You know,
tuned
he
for
finds
tomorrow,
the
folks.
last nerve.
Yeah.
Used to get very cranky with Blake and Trevor
Just need to get to the weekend.
on Fridays.
Just need to get to the weekend.
Yeah. Actually, Rachel, when she produced, did wonders for that phenomenon. She was a calming influence. Mike, you're actually there too. You're quite calming for us.
She would just play Rihanna and everything would be okay.
I do like that weekend song by Rihanna on a Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Elias Pettersson does not see a shift in the overtime, but there's a but. You're penalty killing for 2 minutes, which he's not doing, or at least not one of the principals.
And they got caught 4-on-4
For a long, long
for a
time.
long time afterwards.
Well, I mean, there was no, as Jeff noted on Rinkwide last night, their last 2 overtime wins, penalty shot Drew O'Connor, and 4-on-4. So the 3-on-3 thing continues to be an issue.
But both games were decided, nonetheless.
So he starts with Hedel and O'Connor, and, you know, amazing as that is, because they're, 3 weeks old, this Vancouver Canucks? Then Bluger and Suter on the PK, and then Garland gets out there after the penalty kill. So that explains the overtime side of things for Elias, but, in fact, there's a but on the but on the but. Speaking of derrieres. Just 2 shifts in the final 6:20 of the third in a 2-2 hockey game for an $11.6 million player. Oh.
And this is after he had 2 dekes in the second period that were somewhat
I thought he
reminiscent.
and that line were pretty darn good in the early stages of this hockey game.
Well, at least he tried his skill moves. He's still not skating fast.
But they look peppier, jumpier as a line. We talked about, man, Höglander and him need each other. Just leave them together, coach.
Yeah.
They absolutely need each other. They're buddies. They're going through awfully difficult seasons. Höglander is just better playing with offensively inclined players. And as we discussed yesterday, Höglander does complement Elias's game some.
Well, I do wonder if watching Höglander burn past him, because we know the legs are better for Höglander, if that puts Paterson. And again, I don't think
it gets him playing with pace, as AV used to say about Burroughs with the Twins.
Yeah, as much as he's got. I think he's physically limited in terms of where that top end speed is anyway, but I think you're going to get the top end a little bit more regularly when he's got somebody fast playing with and a friend in Höglander.
I don't know about you, but I was quite concerned when I saw Tyler Myers go down as he did after taking that deflected shot up high. Thomas Drance, who's on the trip for The Athletic, reports he's okay. Big red welt on his neck.
You ever been hit in the throat before?
He said it hit him momentarily, made him dizzy, hit a nerve.
Oh.
Well, there is all sorts of things that can go wrong.
I've taken an elbow to the trachea.
Well, that's what I wondered, is trachea. And
it's the most foreign kind of pain and discomfort.
Exactly.
You just want it to end.
You're accustomed to knees, elbows, legs, feet, ankles, hands, all of shoulders.
Getting your throat hit, it's the worst. So it sounds, if it didn't hit the throat, nerve pain, that's something different too.
Tocchet said post game that it looks like they dodged a bullet there. It said he might even be able to go.
Yeah.
Thursday in Anaheim, today in Anaheim, tonight. What are our friends at Yellow Dog up to?
Well, they've had the Starborn Kolsch contest going for many years now, where they make superstars out of some furry friends.
Make your pet a star.
The brew, the Starborn Kolsch, gets a new can with 4 lucky furry friends from the Make My Pet a Yellow Dog Brewing Star contest. The winners this year, King Buddy, Gus, Yuka, and Winston. And through the collaboration with the BCSPCA, raised a total of over $220,000 to the Yellow Dog. So everybody raised their Kolsch to Starborn with a beautiful new can with those 4 furry friends on, all in support of the BCSPCA. Well done, Yellow Dog.
Winston, great name for a dog. I'm betting it has the jowls, right? Like Churchill.
I think we had it. We had a picture sent to us.
Okay. Tonight versus it's Lucas Dostal in net for the Ducks. He's been very good on a not-so-good team. No morning skate, of course, for Vancouver with the back-to-back. Anaheim is here next week. They're just off a big, well, not big, but Eastern road trip. They blew a 2-goal lead in Buffalo the other night, so smarting from that. But as we know, body clocks adjust. This is oftentimes the difficult game to win. Rick Dollywall says Noah Juulsen's season is over. Surgery on his hernia this week, although really with the emergence of Elias Pettersson, the acquisition of Victor Mancini, and Marcus Pettersson, it was hard to find any kind of playing time.
Feel bad for him, though.
Noah Juulsen.
He's
Pride of
soldier.
Abbotsford. He's going into a unrestricted free agency, so I hope he gets well. Last year had a very good step-up season last year in the NHL. Sadly, a better one than what he's having this year. Irf was on Rinkwide last night, Irf Gafar, saying the Canucks don't want to go over 5 or 6 years on Boeser, as we've been talking about all week. That's quite sensible from the standpoint of a team, whereas if you're the player, you get to open market, other teams can offer you 7, and of course the Canucks, and if he were to be traded, the acquiring team could offer him 8. Irf also said he felt Boeser was rubbed the wrong way by Alvin's evaluating comment, and that's easy to understand. Frankly, I thought that was a poor choice of words from Patrick Alvin. 8 years in, we know what he is, we know what he isn't.
Shouldn't be much left.
Like, I can understand Alvin from the standpoint of, look, he had 40 goals last year, and if he didn't take his foot off the gas, he could have had 50. I agreed with that when Alvin said it. And I understand he's trying to push his guys and stuff like that, but, Brock's more of a sensitive soul, and you know how loyal he is. You know how much this market and this team and this fan base means to him. He mentioned all of that to Ian McIntyre in his piece yesterday. And the only franchise he's ever known, and he's had, all this support from British Columbia hockey fans as his family has gone through so much, including the loss of his father, Duke, since he started with the Canucks, and he's the longest-serving member of the team. Wants to stay, and I get it, and you'd love to see him stay and be a career Canuck, or at least extend on this tenure he's had. But at the end of the day, someone is going to give Brock Boeser between $50 and $65 million on July 1st. So not that hard done by. It is the business. They all come to learn it at one stage. And harsh but true. They are effectively mercenaries, right? And their employers, most of them live by the credo, get out of the player a year early rather than a year late.
He gets an 8x7 for sure, right? $8 million per year for 7 years. He gets that for
I think
sure.
So. Yeah.
I think so. I think that's a minimum bar in unrestricted free agency.
Again, AFP Analytics is with the jump of the cap is looking at 7 by 9.3. So that's over and above $60 million. And Irf went through this on Rinkwide last night. So, to get him on a 5 or 6 year deal, like 8x7 is $55 million, Blake. You have to pay him $10+ million per on a 5-year deal. Just the AAV gets to a place where it doesn't make sense because the Canucks can't go about improving their club, committing that much money to a right winger. We have got to talk about Wayne Gretzky.
Do we?
Who is giving Wayne Gretzky advice these days? And does that person ever plan to work again? President Donald J. Trump doing Wayne a favor yesterday? So as you well know, since Gretzky appeared at the Toronto Dominion Garden last week in Boston for the Four Nations final as Canada's honorary captain, wearing nothing that would distinguish him as being Canada's honorary captain and giving a thumbs up to the USA bench, many have been commenting on Wayne Gretzky, his support of Donald J. Trump, which he is perfectly allowed, free country, both of them, and wondering about the wisdom of choosing Wayne as Canadian captain. Now, I think Hockey Canada just basically went back to hey, this is a really big game. Let's bring in our biggest star of all time, Wayne Gretzky, former manager of the Canadian senior men's national team, Olympic team in 2002. Remember? Crock of crap.
Yep.
Everybody hates this. So Trump goes to Truth Social, and as only he can do, quote, Wayne is a friend and he wants to make me happy. Oh, yeah, it's all about making him happy, right? And is therefore somewhat low-key about Canada remaining a separate country. Trump goes on, I am therefore making him a free agent.
Oh.
I didn't realize he had the power.
Does he get more than 8x7?
Making him a free agent because I don't want anyone in Canada to say bad things about him. He supports Canada the way it is, as he should, and he goes on to talk about, even though Canada would be better off in the good old USFA paying lower taxes, blah, blah, blah.
It reeks of a favor that he's
my God
been granted.
Well, this is what I mean. Who's giving Gretzky advice? Is this Gretzky on his own going to Donald and say, look, Donald, you got to help me out here. My people are killing me up there. And this is what Trump thinks is going to make it better? As Dave Hodge, the legendary Hockey Night in Canada and TSN broadcaster, Donald Trump allows Wayne Gretzky to think for himself? What would it take for Gretzky to receive permission to speak for himself? There is humiliation, and then there is this. Yeah, Wayne, you may actually have to address this at some point. I realize you're turtling now, but at some point, you're going to do an interview where somebody asks you about where your allegiance lies. Where somebody asks you, how come you haven't picked up your Order of Canada from Rideau Hall? It's been there for a decade and a half. All you have to do is call the Governor General's office and let them know which investiture you'd like to attend. There's like 4 of them per year. He is getting support from another Canadian hockey legend in Bobby Orr, Parry Sound, Ontario. Orr penned a letter where he wrote in part, listen, we all have our personal beliefs as they pertain to things such as religion and politics. Wayne respects your right to such beliefs. Why can't you respect his?
Missing the fact that
only
this
it
is
was
not
that simple,
it's
Bobby.
not politics.
Yeah.
This is self-determination and independence. Politics is policy within a country.
If this was about migrants or fentanyl or the size of the bureaucracy, everybody could have that conversation. Maybe agree to
military
disagree.
spending,
maybe find common ground, what have you. But
Not politics.
Canada's right to exist, that's the big stuff.
That's not politics
right?
anymore.
No.
That's national security.
Right.
Weird.
Like what don't they understand? This guy wants to annex Canada.
Mm-hmm. Very, very odd. And
Orr talks about for all he's done for Canada and Canadian hockey. Well, for all Wayne has done for Canada, if we're swallowed up by the USA, to what end?
Yeah.
To what end?
And if he supported the guy that did the swallowing,
right,
is not all of that wiped away?
Of course.
He also did not look terribly happy to be there, by the way, at the final.
Well, he looked uncomfortable, Blake.
Like it was a wince. It was kind of that wincing smile, you know?
Yeah, he looked uncomfortable.
It was weird.
Yeah. Janet Jones Gretzky has commented on the Orr letter thanking Bobby for all his support. She writes of her husband, I have never met anyone who is more proud to be a Canadian, and it has broken his heart to read and see the mean comments. He would do anything to make Canada proud with his love for hockey and his country. I assure you, Miss Jones, there have been more Canadian hearts broken, particularly in Edmonton, by Wayne during this period. And if he would do anything to make Canadians
That's
proud,
quite an offer.
Then how about have a conversation with your buddy Donald about, no, my country doesn't want to be the 51st state. Would you please stop saying that and refer to our prime minister by his appropriate title?
Or you don't even have to have the conversation. At the very least, just declare Canada's never going to be. Mm-hmm. Just flat out declare that.
Yeah.
And it'll go a long way.
Boy, they say don't meet your heroes, and Gretzky is proving that adage for many across our great capital G country.
If you missed Jesse Marsh on the 51st date, the Canadian men's national team soccer
Google
coach,
homework. Yep.
go listen to that.
That's an American who has spent a little bit of time in Canada, but a lot of time in Canada since being named the men's national team head coach.
It sounds like a guy that doesn't really want to go south of the parallel anymore.
It was letter perfect.
Yeah.
It was syllable perfect, what Coach Marsh said last night. A reminder, our friends at the Daily Faceoff and DFO Live have got you covered for NHL trade deadline next Friday, March 7th. They're going early in the morning here, Pacific time, so jump on board with them. Watch all the trades happen as we head towards the deadline. Then we've got you covered here from noon onwards. And J-Pat has got you covered on Rink-Wide Vancouver following that night's game. Home game, Friday home game. I love the Friday home games at Rogers Arena, Canucks versus the Minnesota Wild. Let's get to our menu. It is brought to you by Greta. Greta, a fantastic spot to catch all the games, home and away, steps from the stadium, arena, pregame, postgame. Check out the great street food menu. Did you have any of the poutine? Speaking of Canada,
I have poutine every time I'm there.
Okay.
Every time.
The poutine is quite decadent.
It's good.
The
Very
smash
good.
burgers, yeah. The poutine is a lot of food.
I ordered it as an entree, not as a side.
Yep.
My son had the nachos. He says the best nachos he's ever had.
Yes. I saw him and his buddy devour the nachos.
Yeah.
Plus the arcade. Pop-A-Shot, air hockey. Have you played any of the car games?
I have not played the card games there.
Yeah.
No.
It's a little much for me, the sensory overload. I'm getting old. My reflexes aren't good. I'm terrible at the new Mario Kart, so I don't even go there. But you should check out the car games. 50 West Cordova, Greta. Weekly drink specials. Let the games begin. We got Patrick Johnston coming up here from the Province and PostMedia. We talk about all matters Vancouver Canucks. And then Jama Mahlalela, UBC basketball legend, assistant coach with the Toronto Raptors. He's been an assistant coach with Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors, working for Steve Kerr. Jama is the honorary captain of the Indochino 2025 Women's and Men's Final 8 Basketball Championships at UBC, March 14th to 16th. We've been telling you about that, but we have a terrific discussion with Jama about the rise of Canadian basketball here. In honor of our buddy Basketball Phil, and more on him later in the program as well. Time now for our Bet365 bets of the day, Blake. And, I'm not normally one to crow, so thank you to Yerke, longtime audience member, for shouting it out on Twitter last night. Yes, I had Nils Höglander as an anytime goal scorer at plus 550. We cashed on that. So we're going to get a little gambly here today with another struggling Vancouver Canuck. Elias Pettersson, plus 250 as an anytime goal scorer in Anaheim tonight.
You think you have that power?
You
got Höglander?
Höglander's playing well. DeBrus scored in 2 previous games. And Blake, I'm going to go you one further. How about a multi-point night for EP40, whereby people can go into Surrey Mitsubishi tomorrow and save $1,000 on a new or used vehicle?
There's that too.
Plus 425 for Elias to get 2 tonight at the Pond in Anaheim.
I'm looking at the other local team in action tonight at BC Place. Whitecaps taking on Deportivo Saprissa from Costa Rica, Kendall Waston's team. I think they win the game, but I can do better if I go this route. They win the game 2-1. The game goes into extra time. And at that point, I don't have to pick a winner if I just say the game is decided in extra time. 2-1 seems like a pretty likely score here for the Whitecaps. That would force it into extra time. We're just predicting that. Gets me plus 1,400.
I know Gauld scored early. Were they dangerous down there last week?
First half was very good.
Yeah.
First half was very good. I could see a 2-0 score at half and then them just having trouble defending the full 2-goal lead till the finish line, which is what they would need to win without the extra time. But again, I'm not even predicting a Whitecap victory in extra time. The game goes to extra time. The game is decided in extra time, not goes to. Decided in extra time, plus 1,400.
Open an account with Bet365 today. Bet on a huge range of markets. So, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION when opening that account. Patrick Johnson coming up next. From the Historic Wall Center, and this next segment brought to you by Resurrection Spirits, introducing the Sekeres and Price Dry Gin.
What?
By Resurrection Spirits. We have a gin. We have a gin.
Damn straight we do.
Resurrection's limited edition, Canadian-made London Dry Gin captures the bold spirit of prohibition in that familiar blue cobalt that's synonymous with our show. It's made at Resurrection's East Vancouver distillery. S&P Dry Gin, crafted from triple distilled 100% organic rye grain and infused with 5 timeless botanicals: juniper, coriander, angelica root, lemon peel, and rose. Each sip, a journey, balancing intensity with a refined smoothness that shines. Whether savored neat, do you drink it neat?
Each sip is a journey to East Van, or just a journey?
Whether neat or mixed into your favorite cocktail. Hey, I have an English parent, G&T. It's a thing.
And spring is coming.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a gin with character designed for those who appreciate the art of true craftsmanship in every pour. Get it while you can. Only 250 bottles here available. Visit resurrectionspirits.ca. And thank you to Jared and the team at Resurrection Spirits for indulging us on this one.
Use the code S&P. That's ampersand.
That's right.
Use the code S&P. You get $5 off too.
There you go. Patrick Johnson covers the Canucks for the province and PostMedia, and he joins us now. Up for some gin, buddy?
The idea that you guys have literally been driven to drink is I can't even imagine a more perfect sponsor, let alone actual booze like provider.
Did you watch the game? Like, of course, you have to get through.
Get through Rick talking hockey, buddy.
17,
a little
20 shots a night. Like, yeah. All right, let's start with the poll question then. While we're making fun of it, does it matter how the Canucks win? Do you care
how the Canucks win?
Yeah.
Apparently we've got him stumped here. Look, I understand you covered the team without passion and prejudice. You're going to watch and cover all the games regardless. But for the market, for yourself or the market writ large,
do the fans care?
Does it matter
how they win?
I would say I think for the most part fans just want to see wins. I mean, Jeff has been on top of this question. I mean, he did ask Patrick Alvin this, I think, in January, almost 2 months ago. It don't aesthetics matter? Certainly back in the day, Brian Burke would argue that aesthetics mattered as much as the success. And we are in the entertainment business. So,
Mike Gillis too.
Mike Gillis.
And those are two guys on different ends of the hockey spectrum who shared that in common, right?
To steal a line from Thomas Drance, who once said of John Weisbrod, he said there is one thing that John Weisbrod achieved the impossible, which is to make Mike Gillis and Brian Burke agree on one thing. Now, I guess there's two things, which is that one, John Weisbrod not very good at his job. Two, entertaining hockey is the business. So we are in an interesting time. We're certainly in I suppose, if you want a third poll. It's not the Burke Gillis world. There's a third poll here. It's the Rutherford world. There have been some impressive hockey people in this organization over the years, And right now it's, we don't care about entertainment. We're trying to find wins. And I mean, certainly that third period was stressful last night. Score affects obviously some of it. When you are chasing the game, this is what happens. The team that is chasing the game tends to get more of the opportunities. That said, the game has evolved a long way from when we first learned that almost 15 years ago. And teams understand the mission. So the fact that the Canucks, if you go by natural stat trick, now obviously I'm not always a fan of their high danger chances point, because high danger chances can also be based on where the pass comes from. And natural stat trick's data basically looks at where the shot is taken.
Zonal, yeah.
They had 2 high danger chances at 5-on-5 last night, and they were in the first period.
Yeah.
That said, the power play actually looked good. So I think right now the answer is that wins matter the most. And that's all you want. And they build up from there. And certainly, I mean, the rhetoric is that it's supposed to get better and that it does lean. And I wrote about this yesterday. If you want to fundamentally understand the problems of this team this season, it comes down to 2 guys, and that is Elias Pettersson and JT Miller, and how incredibly poor they have been. Obviously, one of them is gone now. Elias Pettersson.
You say it should get better. How? How does it get better outside of Pettersson?
Maybe he needs to get a little more annoyed at his own play versus what people are asking him. It's pretty simple. It is simple. Move his feet. Get on the puck. Do all the things that you used to do. He was a brilliant, exciting player. Like, people forget this, but I get it. It's a year ago now, but up until a year ago, he was a thrilling, exciting player. It was not a fluke that he had 100 points. It was not a fluke that he won the hardest shot in this All-Star game. It was not a fluke that he was in the All-Star game altogether. It's a guy that knows how to do it. He needs to go do it. Bro, do your deeks.
But let's boil this down, though. Like, I do think the Canucks still want to make the playoffs. Like, the management wants to make the playoffs, correct? Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
So if we're in agreement there, if you're the manager here, the president, you have to assume that Elias Pettersson is not changing for the rest of the season. That he is going to be. You have to, because you have to go worst case scenario. So you have to assume he's not improving it markedly the rest of the year.
Yeah.
So how do they expect to A, make the playoffs, B, win when they get there?
Well, one, they'll say Quinn Hughes, right? I mean, they will look at the way their defense played for the first half of the season. They've changed that mix. There's certainly, we can tell the fact that Elias Pettersson, Junior Pettersson, as I believe Rick actually called him, I think that's where we're going, played the other day, or is playing. Like, they keep putting him in there, and he is performing. That is a positive. Marcus Pettersson has been a positive. They have reshaped their defense. They finally got Quinn Hughes in their new look defense core, right? Now, that is something they clearly are going to point to, right? The additions of Hedl and O'Connor. O'Connor, obviously not a top 6 winger, but there's spark and energy in the way he plays. The speed through the middle that Hedl has brought, like, they will point to those as game changers. Now, is Hedl legitimately a second-line center?
Not yet.
Probably not. But they also have some cap space to work with. In theory, they have 2 weapons. They have cap space. They've got that first-round pick. Now, what they do with them is kind of where everything is going to be. And this goes to your question, Blake. What else could this team be? Well, it's not complete, I think, from their viewpoint. So are they ready to contend this year? I don't think so. I mean, you go out there and look at what players you could possibly add, and it's a lot of older guys, right? And I don't think that's a direction they really want to go. But Elias Pettersson's here. Like, I don't think they're going to be able to trade him. I don't think they have much choice, because whatever you possibly trade for him is going to be so cents on the dollar. It's ridiculous. You made a bet on this guy. You need to see this guy turn around. And if he doesn't, well, you're hooped. But there was no reason to think he was going to turn into a dud after having been a stud for so long. So this is a team, this is a management group that, I think they will look at how they've shifted their roster. There's still work to be done. They will look at some elements of how they played last night, which was they actually did game the zone with speed and possession. Rick talked about the 3 lanes. They actually did have some dynamic attacks. Elias Pettersson did make a dangle on a power play zone entry. Like, that was just like, okay, where's that been all year? Now, these moments need to happen, right? These are all one things. They need to keep happening. So that's what they're looking at, is that there are signs of life, but at the end of the day, you also still need to find more consistency.
2 dekes in the second period.
Ooh, a dangle.
Yeah, sure.
Two dekes.
Sure.
Dangle.
Dekes per 60.
You stopped me. You stopped me dead in my tracks when you said they have a cap space and a first-round pick.
Yep.
Like, surely you're not giving up a first for a rental.
Not a
right?
rental.
It's
No,
I don't
got
think
to
so.
be
No,
a
I don't
player
think
with
so.
term.
No, I don't think so. I'm just saying that I've known this going back to last summer, that there was a willingness, there had been a willingness to go use that first round pick as
Fair.
if need be, right? Like if they had been in, listen, don't forget how they started. They were 6-2-3 to start the season. Like they were looking strong again. And at that point, you could project forward saying, if this carries forward, like they would be smart probably to look at that first round pick, because first of all, it's going to be late. So it's not, it's still value, right? It's not like you're trading a lottery pick, but you're trading something that has value. Yeah. And as as we've always talked about, they now fit in this, they have cap space. Like that is a thing they can use.
I mean, if they miss the playoffs and they,
oh my God. Yes.
Well, if they miss the playoffs, but like if you're trading that pick, you've still got 20 games to play. That pick could be closer to 10 than it could 30 when it's all said and done. So I realize everybody says it's not a great draft, but let's not diminish the value of that pick and where it could be. So I'm glad we're all aligned on it has to be for a player with term.
To get a player with term, PJ, would you expect that they would be willing to trade Jonathan Lekramaki? Or do you think they should, even if they don't?
Well, I mean, that then also becomes a Brock Boeser question.
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
Like, do you think Jonathan Lekramaki is ready to replace Brock Boeser? I don't think so. He's shown glimpses. He scored in the NHL. That's important. But we know physically he's got a ways to go. I don't see that as likely. They clearly like the direction. I mean, I would say the one thing we do know, they clearly like the direction their defense is going, right? They've got Victor Mancini. They like him. I mean, and let's be clear, Victor Mancini, realistically, I mean, they've got Hronek, they've got Myers, they've got Willander on the way. So what is Mancini? Realistically, right now, he's a depth right shot defenseman at best, right? Now, in the long run, maybe but hold on, just think about it.
I just think you're gifting Mancini a spot a little too prematurely.
Yeah, but I'm just saying.
I think there's a halfway chance that Willander is better than Mancini now.
No, to be clear, I'm downplaying, right? I'm saying, people talk about him, they've talked about him, but let's be real. There's already people ahead of him on the depth chart. He's more than likely, this is an all prospects are bad situation. So nonetheless, they like where their thing is. They've got Elias Pettersson in the lineup, right? They've got Marcus Pettersson. They've got Hughes back. They have to make a decision on Susie. They do like for all the sort of blandness of his game. Derek Forbort is effective when healthy, but he's a depth defenseman, right? Noah Juleson, obviously, we know the coaching staff likes for all his flaws, but that is a thing that's fine. But the forward group, they need things there. It is absolutely clear that. And as far as I know, Jonathan Lekramaki is still viewed as a future benefit in that area.
No question. And I think you're right about probably not next year, but in time, Lekramaki fulfilling the Brock Boeser role, I think is an appropriate gamble, if you will, to make.
But guys, like within the Quinn Hughes window, do you care that he helps you 3 years from now? If he can be used as an asset.
That's a
fair question. The Quinn Hughes window is more than just next year, though, Blake. So
no, I know. But still, 2 years from now, if you'd be ecstatic if he scored 20 goals 2 years from now.
But Quinn Hughes would be too.
No, but if you can turn that into somebody that scores 20 goals for you next year, is that not furthering your cause more?
Well, no, because you're probably paying that guy over and above to score those 20, whereas Lekramaki's playing on the cheap contract, and you'll be able to fortify your team by using that cap space elsewhere.
I'm more trying to think how they're thinking, guys, and I think that they need satisfaction now.
Yes, and that is, I mean, as someone very smart in the game once pointed out to me, that the GMs, they don't have the luxury, despite them having, supposedly thinking about the future, they don't. They have to win now because that's what keeps them in their job. Mm-hmm. And we have seen time and again, this particular management group act in that way? How can we improve our team now? How can we make incremental gains now? Jim Benning stunk at that, right? Like think back to the Adam Clendenning trade, right? I mean, that was the Forsling move, right? They said this guy's not ready yet, this guy is, and they made a bad bet. And this group still makes those bets. They've just been better at it, and that's the reality. So that's why the first round pick being a possible trade chip has always been there. I'm less likely to think that they will move Lekaramaki. I think that they really do value what he brings, and for all the reasons Matt said, because there's a cap advantage that he, I think they would like him in the lineup next year, right? Like there's a cap advantage having him in the lineup next year.
I think that's appropriate. Yeah. You mentioned Boeser. You've done some poking around there.
I mean, that's my job, right? You've got to figure out what's going on here. You talk to people, you see what's going on, and listen, nothing new. There's nothing really new out there that they both sides know what they want, know what the expectation is, and certainly the Canucks are leaning hard on Boeser's love of Vancouver. This is where this guy wants to be, right? Like his eyes light up. Like I mentioned that conversation, I don't know, a month ago when we talked about walking his dogs in the woods out near where I grew up. Like he is a fan of this place, and there is without a doubt the Canucks are leaning on that in the hope that he will come to the number they want to give him. That said, they could very well still move him, right? Like if they are trying to build a team for next year with the playoffs in mind this year still, he's a player that can score. He doesn't move the meter on his own, but he's been a great complementary winger. He obviously has worries about his foot speed as he gets older. He is 28 now. There are a lot of reasons to be anxious about signing him to a long-term contract. But he's also a player who's gotten done in the playoffs, right? Like he was a good player for the Canucks last year. So there's a lot to like about him, and that's why we're going to hear lots of noise about him as a trade chip for the next week. And we'll see what happens. We'll see if he's a Vancouver Canuck as of next Friday.
Would that be Pacific Spirit Park? Is that where he walks with the dogs? Yeah.
Yes.
I walk around there often as well. It's a lovely walk.
It's marvelous. Yeah.
You will not get paid the same way as Brock Boeser. Just because you share a park with Brock Boeser, the contracts are going to be vastly different.
I'm under no delusions there.
For once.
For once. Listen to you. Who's getting lippy here?
Exactly.
17 minutes in. Cam Robinson thinks Brock's worth a first-round pick and a pretty good prospect, like a B+, A- level prospect.
Yeah.
Do you concur?
Who am I to argue with Cam? Who am I to argue with?
Do you think they should? Do you think they should do that deal?
Well, I mean, what are you doing with the first round pick? Like, I assume you're turning around and turning into something else, right? Like, you're doing the same thing you just did with
That's
Miller.
been their MO. So,
and
that gets you a little closer to a first or second line centerman.
Yep. 100%. Like that's how you do it, right? It's there's a veteran player, you turn him into exactly. That's
okay. So play my reindeer game for a second. I've got it written down here. Hold on a sec. Boeser for a first and a top prospect. Pius Suter for a second or a third. Carson Soucy for a second and a third. Let's say you get 1 second, 1/3 out of those. Okay. Forward for a fifth.
Okay.
You've got 4 draft picks and a prospect to go into the summer. Ammo on top of what you already have, your first round picks, your top prospects, to go and get that first or second line center. That's if they behave
with the cap space, Matthew. With the cap space.
That's if they behave as pure sellers at the deadline.
Yeah.
Does that intrigue you at all?
That's a lot of selling. That's probably more selling than I would expect.
All UFAs.
Those
are all UFAs. That's just the UFAs. We're not touching anybody who's under contract or club controlled for next year.
Absolutely. I get what you're doing.
You didn't mention Soucy there? You did mention Soucy.
Yeah, Soucy.
He's not UFA.
What's that?
He's not UFA.
He's not UFA. He's got one more year.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, my bad.
And that's why I was like, it's maybe a little more selling. And I mean, that's, as I said the last time on, the idea of trading Soucy to me doesn't fit with the overall MO that this front office and certainly Jim Rutherford has shown in his career, which is that they want defensemen, not to get rid of defensemen. However, and they've already made a shift. They moved away from Desharnais. It didn't work, right? Forbort, I mean, maybe they talk him up because he is a guy they'd like to move, but like for style,
he's grown on me during the year. Like that hit yesterday, wow, and that's like, on Kopitar too. Like,
his penalty killing stats are crazy.
Yeah, he's grown on me.
He is stylistically an incredibly dull player, right? He's not a great passer, but the numbers don't lie. When he is on the ice, the Canucks are in the offensive end of the ice, and they do not give up shots. Now, that's true of them as a system, but Forbort fits this system very well. The breakout is a concern, obviously, but you can see why the Canucks were interested in him. It is in the end, it's a story of why did they go in this the way they went collectively. They went with Desharnais, another defenseman who couldn't move the puck. Like that was a poor choice. But now they've got, as I said, the core more in line with what they want to be, and certainly have shown glimpses of what this team could be better with the puck, moving it, breaking it out. And of course, now we will see what it's like with Quinn Hughes back in there, and maybe it changes the thing. But at the end of the day, they've got to put it all. They need to find that consistency. That's been the issue all season, and partly it's been about how the roster's been constructed, and partly that's been about the insane dynamics behind the scenes. Fiasco, somebody said to me, looking back at it. It was a fiasco. They don't have that.
If Elias Pettersson is hitting on all cylinders, a guy like Braden Shen would probably be okay. But there's going to be a cost of acquisition there for the Canucks. And even in the summer, again, same thing holds. If Elias Pettersson's going, signing a guy like Sam Bennett makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But are either of those two targets lucrative enough, given what we're seeing out of Pettersson, that you even bother showing interest?
Like, when I sort of say you look at the sort of lists, a lot of old guys, Braden Shen is top of that list. Like, love the player, love the career. He's going to be 34 this summer. You already had concerns about JT Miller, and you've moved off him. So now we're going to bring in a guy that's 4 years older. Like, that is one of the things when I sit back and I try to think about what they might do. I mean, I think it comes back to this being, it's good. If they do something, it's likely to be a total surprise and something we haven't talked about, just because of looking what's already on the table. Just doesn't strike me as something they want to do. But that said, if we're talking about trying to win now, Braden Shen would make your team look very good in the playoffs this year. There's no doubt about that. But next year, year after, you start going, oh boy, like, what do you actually want to put on this team?
Forgive me on that Susie thing. He's a player they want to move off, not a UFA.
Yeah, and they've got to ask. They also have to ask his permission. That doesn't get talked about enough. Like, he's got trade protection too, right?
Yeah.
So
he's pretty happy here, despite everything. He likes it.
He's got a full no trade clause. Like,
last question from me. It's our first time talking to you since the Kevin Lankinen extension.
Yes.
Does that make Thatcher expendable to you, or are you a ride them both next year and see where the chips fall type of guy?
I mean, going into this season, once they'd signed Lankinen, the impression we all had was that they were going to try for a three-headed monster. Obviously, the Shilov's story went badly. Maybe it's better coming here. He had a good start on Sunday, but one start does not make a season, and on the whole, his season has not been good. So, yeah, I mean, I found myself thinking clearly they wanted some kind of stability. Locking in Lankinen, who has been a very good player for them, clearly not a guy who can be the guy, but he can be one of the guys. They are setting up for some sort of tandem going forward. Does that feature Thatcher Demko? Well, right now, I guess it does, but I can't believe they're comfortable with that. Like, this is a guy that has had a substantial injury 3 years in a row now, right? I go back. I do think I wrote this in 2019. I said, is it worth actually going the other way? Everybody was looking at Markstrom and his situation. But I said 6 years ago, I said, is this a guy actually, should they go the other way? It was a lesson from the Corey Schneider years, right? You know what you got in your number one guy. True number one guys are hard to find. They saw what they had in Markstrom. Should they have turned around and said, okay, this kid's shown enough, maybe we need to find something. And at that point, they had like Mike DiPietro obviously hasn't panned out as an NHL goalie. There are reasons for that probably don't have to do a lot with him. But nonetheless, at that point, we thought they had a pipeline. There's no pipeline right now. Like Seelovs is kind of it. Nikita Topil's not had a good year. Ty Young, I mean, I suppose he's had a good first season as a pro, but he's mostly been the ECHL, right? Like there's no obvious next guy. And so they need, they will like to see how Sheelovs pans out here, and maybe he changes the discourse, but I think we know what he is. And he's sort of a quad A goalie at best right now. So is Thatcher Demko? I think he is by default, but I can't imagine the Canucks feel comfortable about that going forward. So we'll have to see what they do.
Not a prediction. Who would you start versus the Ducks?
Who would I start on Thursday night?
Yes.
Tonight.
Archer Sheelovs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Incidentally, everybody, after his victory last night, Michael DiPietro leads the American Hockey League in save percentage at 920.
He's had a great listen.
He's all grown up now too. He's no longer Mikey. He's Michael DiPietro.
Well, I think we forced that on him. Unfortunately, I generally like to go with names. I was like, "There's no."
He also leads the AHL in wins. He's got 20 wins. Leads the
How old is he now?
He's had a good run, and like that's an organization that knows goalies, right? Like they know their goalies. Yeah. So he landed in a good spot. It wasn't going to work out here, but it's good for him. It's good to see. He obviously had a brief call up, didn't play, but had a brief call up earlier this season. He's playing really well in Providence. Rebuilt his game. They were playing really well in Providence.
25 years of age.
Yeah,
sometimes goalies bloom late. Get to the NHL later.
Well, it's a statement about
wishing the best.
Yeah.
He was a fun kid. Loved his enthusiasm here.
Yeah, you really did. Yeah.
Thank you. You're a fun
All right,
kid
boys.
too.
Be well. See you on the other side.
Roaming about Pacific Spirit.
Yeah, see you out there, Matt. Yeah, watch out for those dogs
and the coyotes.
But enjoy your drink while you can have a beverage while you're out there.
In the flask. S&P dry gin.
If you are struggling with things like managing stress, anxiety, relationships, or divorce, reach out to the counselors at Advanced Counseling. Book your free initial consultation today at advancedcounseling.ca.
Sekeres and Price from the Historic Wall Center.
We're back, and so is Roll Up to Win at Tim Hortons. All the prizes, the big ones, the small ones that bring you such daily joy, millions of amazing prizes with the swipe of your thumb. You can turn that routine afternoon coffee run. You know the one you're like, should I have one more coffee? Yeah, you should. Sell-off vacations, $1,000 Rakuten cash prize, all-new electric 2025 Volkswagen ID Buzz. That all could be yours. Even the simple joy of winning a free coffee or donut, as we talked about. It feels so good. You have until March 23rd. Open up the Tim's app. Get rolling. Don't let the chance any of these millions of prizes pass you by. Play Roll Up to Win on the Tim's app now. Rules apply. Canada only. No purchase necessary. Visit the Tim's app for details.
Jama Mahlalela is a UBC basketball legend and has had an incredible rise in coaching, now with the Toronto Raptors, previously with the Golden State Warriors, and this week he was named the honorary chair of the 2025 Indochino U Sport Men's and Women's Final 8 basketball championships at UBC March 14th to 16th. And he joins us now from the NBA Road. How you doing, Jama?
I'm doing great, guys. Good to see you guys. Good to connect and great to hear Canadian basketball talk.
Yeah, you were there once upon a time, and now here's your school hosting for the first time ever all the best men's and ladies teams at War Memorial and UBC Thunderbird Arena. What has it meant to you to be connected to this event?
You know what? It's pretty special. I think when I think back on my university career, and at that point, the Nationals were always in Halifax, and you sort of make this trip out to Halifax, and all the teams would be there. And I was very blessed to go a few different times. The fact that it'll be at UBC, I can only imagine what that means to the UBC players, like this year's players, like how special that you can host Nationals. Like you're such an advantage. There's such an energy and an enthusiasm and a passion around this sport, and to have it in your own backyard. And then for me, the part that blows my mind, which is so cool, is the men's and women's together. Like that makes it special, especially first time ever doing it. The UBC can pull this thing off. Really incredible. So proud of the school. So proud of both teams. Looking forward to this thing.
John, I was mentioning to Blake, I was at a Kits Hansworth playoff game, high school playoff game this week. The first 4 3-point shots of the game all went down. There were multiple kids on both teams that shot the three. I was saying, high school now looks like university in our days, and university basketball now is played above the rim. You've sat there and bore first witness, sir, to our rise as a basketball playing country. A word or two about how the level has grown here this century in this sport.
Yeah, I think it really is a true statement. Canadian basketball is on the rise, and it's been this way for a while. And I think if you really start to analyze it, there's been this upsurge of players at the high school level primarily, but probably even before that are really figuring out the game at a super high level. You look at our top talent pool now of players. You look at Shea, you look at RJ Barrett, you look at Dylan Brooks, you look at these guys, and the Zach Edey's coming up behind him. These are really good players. I mean, Shea is a top 4 player in the entire universe right now, and he's Canadian. And I think that really sets the stage for success for our country to play at the highest level. But then the behind the scenes, when you start to break it down, so tons of NBA players that are Canadian, but now you're looking at sort of like university level players, both in the US system and in the Canadian system, who are at the top of their games. They're leading their teams. Before it was sort of this one token Canadian here or there. And now it's like there's Canadians all over the place, and they're really pursuing this thing. And I think the future is super bright for this country from a basketball standpoint, because there's an infrastructure and because people care about it so much.
Yeah, every time I get together with Howard Kelsey, we sit there and marvel that we can cut NBA players from our national team. It is truly amazing.
And not all of it's best on best, though. The national team plays in a lot of tournaments where, of course, it isn't necessarily the NBA. Is it crazy to think that Canadian basketball could help to populate the program a little bit? Canadian university basketball could help populate the program on those moments where maybe they could have somebody rise and be one of the placeholders at just completed AmeriCup qualifying, all that sort of stuff. Like, is that crazy to think?
No, not at all. I think that as you see the sort of growth of talent, that's going to continue across everywhere. Like the talent is going to continue to rise. So I can absolutely see a Canadian university player who becomes like an NBA player. That's on the horizon. Let's not sell it short. But for sure, someone who could sort of play in these FIBA windows. I thought the team did a really good job just now in Dominican and in Mexico, really sort of getting after it. There's 2 losses, but the style of play and the way that they played bodes well for the future. And I think you see these young players who are spending the time and they're playing professionally, most of them in Europe, but they can be successful as the young Canadians can be as well.
Matt talked about watching high school and going, wow, it's gotten better. We actually went and saw I think it was the last time the Final 8 was out at UBC. We went out and checked out a game and thought the same thing, like, wow, it's really improved from the time that we were in university, which was ages ago, Jama. But what do you think, is it coaching? Is it just, the prevalence of academies now and club play, which is certainly around now that we didn't have when we were kids? What's led to the improved play overall?
Yeah, I think it starts with sort of visual representation. So one, I think the Raptors are a huge part of this, in that they've seen young players in Canada can see what it looks like, can see the best of the best on a nightly level if they want to, and it's there and it's in person. I think Vince Carter had a huge effect on this. Like for young Canadians growing up, and you see these are the players now that like would see him or would have been part of that resurgence. Where like, man, basketball is possible. I think if you don't think something's possible, there's no way you'll ever strive for it. But when you see that it's possible, things become great. If you look at my sort of, collegiate days, like back in the day, and you'll know some of these names, obviously, sort of the Kyle Russells and Pasha Baines and Casey Archibalds of the world, that was my group. And like, we were all doing it together, but those guys were aspirational for this now group of people. So when you see someone being successful, you see them being good, you say, I can do it as well. And you believe more. So that's the first part. And then the second part is that I think there's a really good coaching infrastructure. I truly do. I think there's a group of coaches that are super committed to developing the skills that are needed to play this game at the highest level. And then people are evolving. Like, people are just getting better and better, man. They're jumping higher, they're stronger, they're faster. And that sets the stage for some pretty good play.
You're stealing athletes. We talked about this with soccer too.
There's
Soccer and
basketball
are stealing athletes from the traditional hockey streams and other places, right? I mean, we're finding different players now.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's for sure.
What would your 19-year-old self think of you now coaching you coach Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green in Golden State. What would your 19-year-old self think about this rise you've had?
Yeah, I mean, they wouldn't believe. They say, "Who's this guy?" They say, "This ain't me." Like, there's no chance. I think for me, as a Canadian and someone who's grown up in this system, who played collegiately here, who went to high school here, the journey I've been on has been an exceptional one. And it's been one of small moments, but it's about daily making as many correct choices as I can to sort of lead my career forward. And those career choices are really people choices. And they're choices about how we care for each other, how we try and make the right decisions, and just set myself up in the best possible position I can be. There was a moment that was maybe 10 or 12 years ago now when Coach Dwayne Casey, who was the head coach of the Raptors at the time, and I was sort of in a support capacity with the Raptors at that point. So I was helping them out with sort of off-court things and the people part primarily, helping players transition to the city of Toronto, their families, those sorts of things. And Coach Casey brings me into the office trying to figure out who his coaches are going to be for the next year, and has this moment and he's listing these attributes, all human attributes, all caring attributes, and pauses halfway through and said, hey, would you be interested? And it was this sort of absolute pinch me moment that an NBA head coach was even thinking about this for me to be on his coaching staff. And for that 19-year-old, something I never could have envisioned. And at that point, 23-year-old never could have envisioned, and now sort of, where I am now, it's been this amazing journey where I get to meet people all the time. I get to coach. I was telling you guys earlier, like we were played Boston yesterday. The World Championships. We're playing Indiana today. We're going to Orlando after this. Like you're just filled with it all the time, man. You get basketball 24/7. And how awesome is it?
I know he's from up the hill at that other school, but if you cross paths with Jay Triano much, I mean, he was the trailblazer.
Yeah. No, me and Jay, we've had some battles for sure. Obviously, tremendous coach, tremendous person. It's been fun to watch his career and my career. There was a point where we were the only two Canadians that were sort of in the NBA, and thankfully, there's more and more that are joining along the ranks now. And so there's a smaller group of us, but a group nonetheless. And yes, even though the SFU ties, I can still love the guy even still.
Good.
Well, I mean, you've coached Canadians, Andrew Wiggins. You got several right now. RJ Barrett. Of course, Chris Boucher, and sad. A word or two about our boy Kelly Olynyk from Kamloops. Jam. It was sad to see him have to.
You know what was really interesting? So Kelly, I've obviously known Kelly his whole life, and sort of his dad of all things recruited me. He was coaching at U of T at the time. So I finished high school at Oakwood, and his dad is coaching at U of T, and he's recruiting me to come there. And like I'm feeling pressure and the Olynyk and the whole name and the whole thing. And I'm going to UBC, good choice. But I think from that point on, knowing that family and then knowing Kelly as he grew up in basketball, and then suddenly he's on the Raptors, and I get to coach him personally each and every day. And he, as you guys well know, and as all of us know listening, like he's the top of the food chain in terms of quality people, right? He's what we aspire to be. He's what you want your kids to be like. He represents sort of Canadians in such an amazing way. And to get to coach him now each and every moment was so special. And for him was the same. For him to be able to play for the Raptors, because he watched Vince Carter back in the day. He saw the rise of this stuff, and now he was on the Raptors himself. He was sad to go. We were sad to have him leave. It's the business, blah, 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 kind of is what it is. But he's such a special person. And even though it was a short stint with the Raptors, we'll all remember it. But we're remembering his basketball career nonetheless over top of what team he played for.
I'm gonna put you on the spot here, John. My last one. Mm-hmm. And I know you're concentrate on coaching and the everyday next team up, all that sort of stuff. But do you tap into the scouts at all? Do you have any Canadian up and coming names? Do you know anybody on the horizon here for Canada that we should be putting in our back pocket, a name to remember sort of for the future? Have you come across anybody?
There's definitely a few. I think for me, the one that's sort of, they're already established, but I think just what can sort of move the needle for us tremendously is Zach Edey. We all know him. Yeah. But I think we don't really appreciate what he can do. And so for me, I get to watch NBA every single night. So, we'll watch Memphis every fifth night. I'm watching the game they're playing somewhere and seeing his growth as a player and seeing what he could potentially do for his career. And I think when you think of him 5 years ago, no one thought that was the case, right? No, like Zach's not going to be a great NBA player. And I think he can be. I think he's going to play for our national team and be a tremendous influence.
We don't have that player on the national team, right? We don't have that length, so
we need that. We absolutely need that. So to me, that's the name that comes to mind, and we all know him, but I think we don't know how good he can be. And that to me is the difference in basketball. Like it's one of those sports where you really need the superstar. You need a player who can really move the needle off on the court and off the court, both offense and defense. And Zach's someone I think who's going to do that for us in the future.
A two-time Naismith NCAA Player of the Year. Kelly won that as well way back. I mean, it's just extraordinary to be talking about Canadian basketball players in this vein. And then there's Shea, who you've already mentioned. Do you suspect he'll be the league MVP this year, Jama?
I mean, if you just look at the body of work thus far, you look at the way that team is performing, he's special. I think there's such a difficulty, personally from even our team playing against him over these years. He's so hard to stop. And when you have someone like that, it makes the defenses move, and you have to create all these schemes to try and navigate him. And that makes his teammates better because there's so much focus and attention put on him. So I think it's obviously a good race. There's a ton of good players in this thing, but I really think that Shea is playing at an MVP level. I think he deserves the MVP this year. I think, like I said earlier, like if you just look even body of work over the last 3 or 4 years, he's one of the best players in the entire universe. And that is so special and so amazing.
Is he one of the most entertaining players in the universe too? Just because he penetrates, like he's kind of old school. He's kind of 90s basketball in a lot of ways.
In every way.
Yeah.
No, for sure. Like, and it's funny, like you sort of see his physique, and I think it's interesting. It's almost a Steph Curry effect. Like I've had that firsthand, where like Steph looks normal, quote unquote, and like so you're a random person on the street, you don't see 7'1" and 400 pounds of muscle. Like Steph's just normal, and Shea is similar. Like he's so long and lanky and sinewy, and like there's amazing athletic attributes. But he just kind of finds a way, like he slithers away to the paint and he's just unstoppable. You just cut off this, he goes this way. You do this, he does that. His IQ doesn't get enough credit. Shea's ability to make the right read in the basketball game is phenomenal. You change your coverage to this. He's like LeBron in many ways. Obviously with the Raptors, we had our LeBronto nightmares for many, many years with LeBron, like changing, like we would change our coverage and he would change what he was doing like that on the next possession. And Shea's the same way. He gets the game. He understands the game. He's a really smart basketball player.
And caught some of that incredible home and home they played with Minnesota Sunday, Monday. Terrific basketball games. And looking forward to watching Shea and this OKC Thunder team in the playoffs. Much like we're looking forward to the Indochino women's and men's Final Eights. You can get your tickets, final8.ca. This is March 14th to 16 at both UBC Thunderbird Arena and War Memorial. And the women's team is in a big semifinal coming up this weekend, and you can get your tickets there at gothunderbirds.ca. They play Alberta in a Canada West semi Saturday, 3 p.m. at War Memorial.
Have a great finish to the season.
Yeah, Jama, we're watching.
Yeah, absolutely.
Looks great.
Thank you guys so much. Absolutely.
If you are struggling with things like managing stress, anxiety, relationships, or divorce, reach out to the counselors at Advanced Counseling. Book your free initial consultation today at advancedcounseling.ca.
Sekeres and Price from the historic Wall Center, where if you have your tickets to the big game, why not make it a full experience? Stay downtown here at the Wall. Call 604-331-1000. Ask for the Sekeres and Price rates. Some blackout date supply based on availability. This next segment brought to you by your Pacific Toyota dealers. The 2024 Toyota BZ4X, the ideal Vancouver car, gets you into the HOV lane, the commuting vehicle par excellence, 100% electric. Plug it in at night at home, and you never see a gas station. Incredibly spacious. It's got tons of leg room, plus all that SUV cargo capacity, family, friends, pets, sports gear. It all fits. It can handle all the terrain from the city to the slopes. And when you choose the BZ4X, you can get up to $6,500 in rebates and incentives. You can finance a 2025 BZ4X, from 3.29% APR for 36 months. Take a test drive. Learn how easy an electric vehicle is. Visit your nearest Pacific Toyota dealership today or visit shoptoyota.ca. And been telling you about this exciting contest as well. The grand prize, 2 tickets to the Canucks Minolta Champions Club at Rogers Arena, the April 6th game between the Canucks and the Golden Knights. If you want to win, check out the link in our episode description or follow Toyota Pacific on Instagram and Facebook at Toyota Pacific for your chance to enter. Contest open to BC and Yukon residents age of majority. All right, we previewed this yesterday, but every week now, Blake's going to be on the spot making NHL picks.
Not just for bragging rights.
As part of the Safeway My NHL picks.
It's not just for bragging rights. I'm doing this for personal gain.
Those scene points.
Every week, you can be rewarded with exclusive grocery offers from NHL supplier partners just for playing. Each correct pick gets you closer to upwards of 150,000 Scene Plus points. And every week, you get a new kick at the can. A new slate of games opens up every Thursday. You make those picks. And here on the show, we're going to recap my picks every Wednesday. So here's what my picks look like for this coming 7-day period. I've got 2 games on the docket here tonight. The Canucks I think they grind out a win versus the Anaheim Ducks. This is one where the low event hockey is going to play into their favor. I've got no doubt they can pull off the victory here tonight.
Anaheim first game off an Eastern road trip. We know how tough they can be.
That as well. Blackhawks are in disarray. Dressing room troubles. The Golden Knights should have no problem at home there. And then on the weekend, a similar set of circumstances. Obviously, Edmonton is much better than Chicago, but they are in a world of hurt right now. And eventually, Mikko Rantanen is going to look like Mikko Rantanen, so I'm going to take the Canes over the Oilers there.
Carolina shoots from everywhere. I'm not sure that's a great formula for Stuart Skinner, the way the Edmonton goaltending is going right now.
And then finally, I'm going to finish up the week with two more picks. Mike, are we going to show them that? There we go. I think it's going to be tough. The fifth game for the Vancouver Canucks against the Kraken. I'm going to hedge towards the home side Kraken in that one. And then the Golden Knights, again, back to a team that's doubting itself. I saw somebody say, I forget who it was on Twitter, say the New Jersey Devils are way too soft. They are going to be terrible next season even. Like they're going to have to redefine themselves. It's starting to show cracks. The heavier Golden Knights, again, still at home. I'm going to take the Golden Knights to finish off the weekend as well. There you go. We'll see how I do coming up on Wednesday.
Yeah, let us know what you think of Blake's NHL picks. My NHL picks from Safeway. Whitecaps host Deportivo Saprissa tonight at BC Place. Har Johal of Daily Hive, our journalist or handle on social, says expect at least 15,000 there for the game. Axel Schuster has spoken on season tickets. He said they're north of 12,000 for this year. Now, that's down about 4,000 from last year, but remember, last year, if you got the season tickets, you got in on the would-be Messi game. They are up from 9,000 season ticket subscribers in
I count that as a
2023.
victory, Matt. I count that as a victory because
for
without the Messi factor, I think I could have guessed maybe they lose 6,000 from that.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
or gone all the way back to 9, but no.
Or gone, yeah. So I count that as victory, and let's hope that, you know, people are showing, because I think a lot of people also bought season tickets and bought ticket packs and didn't come to some of the games just out of the hopes they were going to get that Miami game. So butts and seats is as important as selling for me, and a couple of good wins to start the season, I think maybe could add to the walk-ups.
The Glass City Insider account has more on Caps targets, hearing they're closing in on midfield targets Dominic Fitz, a 25-year-old playing in the Austrian Bundesliga, and Lukasz Poreba, a 24-year-old Polish midfielder from Hamburger SV in the second division of German football. And Glass City's been pretty good, pretty accurate.
He predicted Stuart Armstrong long before Stuart Armstrong.
Or she.
Fitz is a maestro in the Austrian league.
An Austrian maestro, you don't say.
Yeah.
Huh?
You like that, huh? His stats are out of sight, so could be exciting if he and you know, it's, you know, guys like, you think of LAFC last year, they're bringing a guy like Mateusz Bogusz, who not a household name for casual soccer fans, comes in and looks dominant and so that's the kind of guy that you're hoping for. Is you don't know him because European soccer is so huge,
Yes, it is.
but when he arrives, he's ready to dominate.
Trivia: Mozart or Beethoven? Which one was Austrian?
Mozart.
Very good. Beethoven?
German, no?
Yeah. Very good. Okay, just testing you. The home opener Sunday, of course, against the LA Galaxy, the reigning defending MLS champions, at 2 p.m. Okay, let's get to Surrey Mitsubishi poll question results from Wednesday's program. We asked you, where is the next top two center for the Canucks coming from? The options here were trade, free agency, in-house, or the draft. What won the poll, Blake?
And we got into this a little bit with PJ today as well. I think people are saying trade.
Correct. Percentage?
46.
54. Free agency finished second with 27%. 14% of you voted draft. And 4% said in-house. Sapster, in-house, laughing gif.
Not a rot to truther.
We're a Hedel guy.
Yeah.
Wayne, I've lost faith in this management group. In my opinion, it's rebuild time. Steven, Hedel is the second-line center. He may be a slight downgrade from Miller now, but he will outproduce Miller in the long run.
Ooh, that's bold. Miller's
yeah, if we sign
producer.
Marner or Rantanen, that would be a big boost to the top six. Yeah, it sure
think?
would. Gord says trade. They'll have to buy low themselves. Nobody is selling a mid-20s center coming off career/breakout years, nor can Vancouver afford buying high in terms of trade cost. I think that is probably right. Errors and omissions from yesterday's program. I had the total number of games wrong for the Canucks. It is 13 home games left, or 12 away. That was going into yesterday. Mm-hmm. And you wondered when Carson Soucy's last game was. Well, he was scratched for the Utah game, but he played the Vegas game.
He did, huh? Okay.
Coming out of the Four Nations. Want to thank everybody for joining us today, connecting with the program. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow on social. That's X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky. We're live on many of those platforms, noon Pacific time, weekdays. And, of course, support the community sponsors that we tell you about. This is typically the time where we sign off, and I tell you to keep it local. We're going to keep it local in a different way here today, because we end today with heavy hearts after losing Gilbert Verrett, the father of longtime S&P audience member Basketball Phil. He passed away, Gilbert did, Wednesday, surrounded by his family in Burnaby. He was 87 years old. Phil was telling me he left his hometown of Quebec City at 15 years old, if you can believe that, Blake. Made his way out west here, working at logging camps.
Wow.
Eventually at Mount St. Joseph's Hospital, doing whatever he needed to do to survive and to support his family of three. He's survived by his daughter, Joanne, her husband, George, son, Paul, his wife, Deanna, grandchildren, Carter and Connor, and, of course, our friend, Phil. And I saw Phil's post about his dad passing last night, and I found myself going through the replies, and I couldn't help but notice a couple of things. Number one, just how beloved Phil is by the Vancouver sporting community, and B, that I recognized just about every single account that was in the replies sending well wishes, that either I had interacted with them over the years, they had interacted with this show. And I joked with Phil today that he and Gilbert managed to unite Canucks Twitter, which is no easy
he said today,
feat.
everybody rips on Canucks Twitter. All the support you've given me in the last day, I love you guys. So well done to all of you that showed your support of Basketball Phil, who is also today, he's on Twitter today reacting to the passing of Gene Hackman. So he's thinking back to his own life and another long life lived. 87 for his dad, 95 for Gene Hackman, and it's given Phil all the feels. So big hugs to the big man.
Hoosiers. My team is on the floor.
Yeah. Basketball Phil's a part of our team.
Oh, absolutely. And a prolific poster. He's endeared himself. You know, the humor, the biting sarcasm, and wit. The Happy Catterday post that I know Carmen and all other feline friends look forward to. And, of course, his trademark, high hockey. Digs anytime something basketball dunks on our national sport. It was a bad week last week for Phil with the Four Nations in the NBA All-Star game. And look, I know, as you mentioned, I know a lot of people consider social media a cesspool. I talked with Phil at our last Canucks Army watch party, and he was telling me he's found community there and a way of interacting with a larger world in a more comfortable space than face-to-face. He also told me that all the support is helping him grieve in these early hours. So we want to rally behind our friend Phil, and from everybody here at Sekeres and Price, Rink-Wide Vancouver Canucks Conversation, want to send all our condolences and comforts to Phil and the Verrett family.